Mo, welcome back to the program. So let's roll into this.
Thank you, Francisc. And the Ligier factory is back again, once again, in Magny-Cours. So
exactly.
Our headquarters are back in Magny-Cours in France. So.
And I was born in Nevers, which is like 10 miles. So.
Yeah, perfect.
Right there.
Thank you, Mo.
Good. You're welcome. Nice to see you, Mark.
Likewise, Mo. Good to see you. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing
Excellent.
good. Yeah.
So before we go into all the cool things that Ligier is doing today, I do want to talk about the brand's history a little bit, because I'm not capable of hearing that name without thinking of Jacques Lafitte in F1.
So I didn't bring a video, but I brought props.
Oh, cool.
How about that?
Oh, look at that. Look at
That's
that.
a 1979 Ligier JS11. This one is a Patrick Depailler version. But obviously Patrick and Jacques Lafitte were teammates for several years in this beautiful, this is a Ford Cosworth powered one. They started with Matra power. And of course, the Ligier brand was present in Formula One as a constructor for some 20 years or so. And I listened to David Salters, your last guest, Ligier's biggest day in 1996 when they won the Monaco Grand Prix. Olivier Panis was powered by a Honda engine that day. So
there you go.
It's a small world. It's a small world. We're all connected in. So, Guy Ligier was a racer, and wanted to build race cars with his best friend. And I'll tell you a story about the best friend here in a second. And they built sports cars in the beginning. They both raced, and then they built sports cars. And then eventually Guy Ligier moved into the Formula One world as a constructor and was there for close to 20 years. His best friend in the 60s was a man named Joe Schlesser, and they both had this dream of racing cars that they would build. Unfortunately, Joe Schlesser got an opportunity to race in Formula One, maybe a little earlier than he was ready for. Drove the 67 Honda that had a magnesium chassis, and he crashed it on his debut, caught fire, and we lost Joe Schlesser. And to this day, every Ligier car we produce starts with the initials JS, and that's an homage to Joe Schlesser. Guy Ligier said at the time, I will name all of my cars beginning with the letters JS in honor of my friend. And through several different ownership packages along the way to our current, where Pierre Nicolet, the Nicolet family own the company, they still adhere to that JS nomenclature on the cars as an homage to Joe Schlesser. Who we lost back in '67 at the French Grand Prix. 20 years in Formula One, they built sports cars, and then got into Formula One, 79, 80, very successful years. Finished second, I think, in the Constructors' Championship. Lafitte won 6 Grand Prix, I think, in last win of Formula One for the brand. Company was purchased by Tom Walkinshaw, by somebody else, and Prost owned it for a while. It moved around a little bit. And in the early 2000s, it was all put back together by Guy Ligier, and he asked his friend, Jacques Nicolet, to take control of the brand and take care of its legacy going forward. And Jacques did that and has built the company since then, built it back up by putting a series of companies together into one big motorsport soup, I call it. And it's now under the Ligier Automotive brand, based, as we just mentioned, at Magny-Cours in France. They bought a company called Torque Engineering, who built all the Andros ice racing cars, and they built some concept cars and a pretty cool EV drift car at the moment. And they bought Sodemo, an electronics and engine company. They bought, several other motorsports companies, Saulnier Racing and Onroc and Martini, the old F3 manufacturer that's now under the Ligier umbrella. They also own a company called HP Composites in Italy, which is in Carbon Valley in Italy, on the east coast of Italy, one of the biggest carbon manufacturers in the automotive world, particularly the motorsports world. And they build all the tubs for us and several other manufacturers, tubs and body parts. But they also do very high-end, very high-quality body components for luxury brands, the Italian luxury brands and several others. So all this came together as one big group under the Ligier Automotive brand. HPC in Italy is a separate brand, but it's all basically in the family under Everspeed as the holding company. And along the way, they bought a company here in North Carolina, Crawford Race Cars. So Max Crawford had founded his company some years before as a composites company, and then was building race cars. And Ligier bought Crawford Race Cars in 2016, and Max stayed on. They built the original F4 car here in the US. They built several race cars along the way, and Max stayed on as CEO until late last year. And when he stepped away, Pierre was looking for somebody to fill in that leadership role, and he turned to me and invited me to come down here to North Carolina, and I've been here since May. I started, and it's a good group of people, hardworking people, clever people, and we're building race cars. So we serve two purposes. We're the distributor for everything Ligier builds in France. So P3 cars, P2 cars. Ligier is also the manufacturer of the Lamborghini GTP car that we see in IMSA and WEC. Their plans are yet to be defined for next year, but likely we'll see them in IMSA. They build P2 cars, they build P3 cars, the dominant P3 car here in the US. We have a series in Europe called the Ligier European Series, where we race our P4 car and a GT car that we build, a non-homologated GT car, the JS2. And here in the US, we did build the first generation F4 car. We build the current gen F4 US car and the Formula Regional Americas car that both race under the Pirelli Motorsports banner on their calendar. I watched Tony and Michael print up yesterday on these shows, and so we build cars here in North Carolina, and we also act as a distributor for everything built in France. We have a warehouse, just parts distribution warehouse here. We have a couple of trucks to go out on the road to all the races and support the races, and it's a full plate for sure. But one of the things that interested me when I came here is the Ligier brand, as you mentioned at the opening. If people grew up in Formula One in the 70s and 80s, they know Ligier. But other than that, it's not a well-known brand in the US. In Europe, it's very, very strong, very strong brand. Not a really well-known brand in the US, and that's part of the challenge that interests me here, is to be able to, give life to this brand here in this market, and have people understand that we're not a newcomer to, people see us in the, that's an F3 car, an F4 car over here. They see us in that marketplace and they think, oh, we're just a Johnny-come-lately car builder. We're not. We've been building race cars for a long, long time. And we know what we're doing, and we're able to deliver a quality product and a quality experience to young teams and drivers, and also gentleman drivers. The P3 world is full of gentleman drivers who have the means to go racing on their own schedule and at their own pace. And the P3 car has become sort of their favorite toy. It's because it's very rewarding to drive, yet it's not as complex, and you don't need a whole team of engineers like a P2 car or a GTP car. It's a little more user friendly than some of those cars, but still it gives back the driving reward that a lot of these guys are looking for. So pretty broad range of things to occupy my days here. So
we'll go into all of that in just a second. Before we move on from the past completely, I also just want to salute those JS2 sports cars that went to Le Mans in the early 70s, because those things were so cool.
Yeah, fantastic. So we have one in our historic collection in France.
Oh, really?
We have just restored a JS2, which Jacques Nicolet races in historic racing in Europe. It's in the same color scheme, that yellow and green color scheme, exactly as it was back in the day. We just restored it, and it's a runner. And we also have a current car called the JS2R, which sort of pays tribute to that. And that races in its own series in France, or in all over Europe, actually. Beautiful car. I just sent a young American kid, Ryan Sheehan, who raced in Formula Regional with us. I sent him to Mugello a couple of months ago to race a JS2R, and he raved about it, loved about it. And there's a few of those in the US that race in various different sanctioning bodies. My dream, if I'm allowed to dream, is to have a North American Ligier Cup, just like the European Ligier Series with the P4 and the P3, and to create a series somewhere under some sanction. JS2R can't race at IMSA because of their rules about having to build a minimum quantity of production road cars, which is fair. I understand why they do that, and that's fair. So there's lots of other opportunities for us to look around and find a place for that car to race. But there's a few of those in the US, and everybody who drives that car, Ryan Sheehan being the latest, come back and say, "Oh my God, what a joy that car is to drive! It's a lot of fun, and it's a good looking car." We actually built a hydrogen version of it that ran a parade demonstration lap at Le Mans this past June. We in concert with Bosch, we developed hydrogen power around a JS2 platform. It has a little bit of a different body style, a little more aggressive, but it's essentially a JS2R with hydrogen power, and that ran at Le Mans last year, and we'll take that out and run that as often as we can. And that's a nod to the level of technological development and advancement that's going on at Ligier in France. We don't just build race cars; we're also busy exploring new technologies through some of the other companies that are part of the family. So
let's go back. You've mentioned F4 and Formula Regional a couple of times now. I want to go back and drill into those a little bit more, because those are it's development. The development categories, it's junior racing, but those cars are absolutely state of the art, especially from a safety standpoint.
So that's a key point, and they're state of the art because they're the two FIA sanctioned series that run in the US. And if you want to be FIA sanctioned, you have to meet the FIA safety standards. There's no gray area there. There's no getting around that. You have to race on FIA grade 2 tracks. You have to meet all these various requirements to be an FIA sanctioned series. So the F422, the second gen F4 car that we launched earlier this year, that is built to the very latest FIA safety standards, an FIA halo, side intrusion panels, front and rear crash boxes. Everything about that car is built to absolutely the latest FIA safety standards. When we launched that car, we actually asked the FIA, "Hey, can we use an existing tub? Can we modify something?" And they said no, because the safety standards evolve year after year after year. So the first gen F4 car doesn't have a halo because it wasn't required in 2016 when that was developed or launched. Can't use that hub, can't bolt a tub, you can't bolt a halo onto that tub because the tub was never built to take the stresses that a halo would put into that in the event of an accident. So all new car. And now we're looking in the next couple of years, looking at the next gen Formula Regional car. And we asked the same question. We've just launched this tub, this car, F4 car. Can we build it as an evolution of that? Nope, because the safety standards are moving along. So that'll be an all new car, which is driven by FIA. The nice people at the FIA are very kind to us. They also price cap the car. So, so you have to do all this work, and they tell you how much you can sell it for. Now, as frustrating as that is from a business standpoint, it's great for the teams and drivers because now the cost of entry, the cost to compete a season in USF4 or Formula Regionals is significantly lower than equivalent series in Europe or around the rest of the world. I'm talking by half in some cases.
Cool.
And even the alternate series on the Road to Indy side, a season in our cars costs a lot less for a young driver stepping out of karting than a season anywhere else, whether they're looking in Europe at an F4 program or looking here in North America at a similar program. So, that's an important part that's really driven by the FIA because of the price of the car is cost cap, but it's also, I have to give Tony Perella and the folks at PMH credit for that, because they also put in place rules like tires, for example. We race on hand-cooked tires, and you can only have 2 new sets of tires per race weekend. We do 3 races on a weekend. So 2 practice sessions, a qualifying session, and 3 races. You can start the weekend on a used set, but you can only buy 2 new sets of tires for the weekend. And that helps keep costs down, right? So if you look at a young kid who's coming out of karting and the family have some money and they want this, they all want to get to Formula One. They all aspire to get to Formula One at that stage. If you do, for example, 4 years in our car, so you do JSF4, which is the first gen F4 car, our juniors level, then F4 for 2 years, and then Formula Regional for a year, you will have spent, add up those 4 years of operational budgets and compare that to what you'd have to do either on a similar ladder in Europe or even here in the US, you're going to have about 50 to 60% of if you start off with the same amount of money and do those 4 years, you'll have spent about 50 to 60% less than any of those other series. So now you look at an Indy Next as your next step. You've already got, if you're a forward thinker, if you're a good planner, you've already got half your Indy Next budget or more set aside. And the key point, and this is a very relevant thing to talk about at the moment, with the Cadillac announcement of them joining F1, and everybody talking about Colton Herta, Franco Colapinto, and all these young drivers. There's a bunch of them moving into Formula One this year. Is super license points. Yeah. So in F4 US and Formula Regional, you get a full slate of super license points if you win those championships or finish in the top few spots. If you win our F4 championship and then win Formula Regional and then go to Indy Next, and finish third in that championship, you will have 40 super license points, which is what you need for an F1 license. We all remember Colton a few years ago when there was an opportunity for him to go to Formula One with Sauber, I think it was at the time. And what stopped that deal from happening was he didn't have the super license points. Franco Colapinto steps right in. Franco did F4, not in our series, but he did F4 and Formula Regional early in his career. So all those young kids who are coming out of Formula 2, obviously you do well there, you're going to get the super license points anyway. But you and I both know, because we've been around the business a long time, that only a small number of these kids are ever going to get a look at Formula One. But when they're 14 or 15 years old coming out of karting, we don't know which of them is going to make it, and they don't know. So for them, and their families, super license points are a big part of that exercise. So that's been something that we have talked about with the teams and the drivers, and it's a very relevant thing. There's three things that are important to these families, because at this level, you're really talking about families. There isn't a lot of sponsorship. There are people paying for it, but it's more patronage than true sponsorship. There are three things that are important for these families. One is the safety of the car. Am I putting my kid into a safe environment, or as safe an environment as we can create for them? That's where the FIA safety standards come in. Two is the cost. Can I build a sustainable plan to get at least a few steps up the ladder? And three, can I get the super license points on my way up the ladder, so that if I'm good enough, and if I get to the top of that ladder, or if I go to Indy Next or transfer from Formula Regional to International F3 or even F2, that's a bigger step, then do I have the resume, and I don't mean just the where have I been and what have I done, but the super license points that go along with that, to get consideration from those teams, even to get in and test and do some of that stuff. So those are the three things that are very important to the families and the teams we talk to. And I know Scott Goodyear is the race director for F4 US and Formula Regional and the Ligier F4 series under the PMH banner. Scott's fantastic. He's a brilliant race director. And I know he talks all the time to families. He's actually, I think, this week out at his Hearts to Cars event at Radford Race School in Arizona. And he talks to families all the time about making this step from karting into car racing. And those are the three things that come up all the time. How much is it going to cost? Can I have super license points? And for the moms and the dads, but mostly the moms, is it as safe as you can make it for my kid? And that's an important point for these families, because they're spending a significant amount of money. Some of them have it, and it's okay, but for some of them it's a stretch. There's a young kid came to COTA. I grew up in Ireland, as you know. I had a young Irish kid come to COTA, Connor Grant, very talented, very good kid. Loved what he found here for those three reasons. The family came with him, and they said, "Yep, that's where we want to go racing." But now, finding the budget to get to that next step, that's a challenge for all racers, and that's the stage that they're in at the moment. So, finding a budget and then spending that money wisely, so that you don't blow all your marbles in 1 year, because it takes time to learn these tracks and learn these cars. So, it's an important point to build a sustainable career path in for these young drivers. The other thing that's important is the prize structure that goes along with it. So if you win our JSF4 series, Ligier will give you an F4 car. You get a ready to race F4 car that you can take to the track and go race. Take it to a team and go race. There are some other prizes too. If you win the F4 championship, we'll give you an we call it F3. It's Formula Regional car that you can then take to a team and go run the season. Now, following F3 or Formula Regional, there isn't a step, at least on the Ligier ladder, unless we redirect somebody over to a P3 or one of our European programs over there. But to his credit, Tony Perella recognized that this is an opportunity to be better in the marketplace, and has just recently announced a $100,000 scholarship prize, career advancement prize for the Formula Regional champion beginning in 25. So whoever wins the championship in 25 will get that $100,000 prize, and they can take it and go race Indy Next, or go to Europe, or go to a Ligier program, whatever they want to do. But that prize makes Formula Regional and the cars that you get and the other prizes you get at the other levels makes it a much more viable opportunity for young families looking at, how do I take my kid to the next level, or give them the best shot that they can have to get to the next level. So go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, you've mentioned the P3 platform a few times, and I'd like to circle back to that, because I believe you've just homologated the new generation car there, the P325.
The new P325 has just been homologated. Lovely car. We've sold, I think, a dozen of those already. We've sold a couple here in the US. We anticipate they'll be legal in IMSA in 2026, not in 25. And it comes with the new Toyota V6 power plant, twin turbo power plant. And that's a change that's across the board for P3, that there's a new power plant. And we've been testing. We probably have, I don't know, 6,000 kilometers of testing on the car, and so far it's performed very, very well. The drivers who've been in it like it, and they say it's a little easier to drive. It's a little more rewarding, or a little more feedback than the old car. The nice thing about the P325 is, if you have a P320, the current gen P3 car, and you don't want to spring for a new car, you can buy a kit. And I'm not trying to hamper sales of the new car, but you can buy a kit that has everything you need to take your current P320 and convert it to a P325. It's not an inexpensive kit, because it comes with the engine and the additional cooling and all the other stuff, additional bodywork, all the other stuff that goes into the new car. But essentially the spine of the car is the same. And so you can convert a current P320 into a 325. But the new 325, we unveiled it at Le Mans last June, and began testing it probably a week later. Fortunately, I was at Magny-Cours the day they ran their first shakedown with the car, and that was a very exciting time. And so, that's exciting for us. Big pickup in Europe, lots of European teams picking that car up. Some pickup here in the US as normal, because we're delivering for people are going to race it in 25 in Europe. And so we need to get those teams their cars first, probably 26 or mid 25 before we see cars on the ground here. And then we'll see it in IMSA competition in the VPRC series in 26 is our understanding. And yeah, it's a really exciting car. It's pretty cool car. Lots of good, strong test miles at several tracks around Europe since we launched it. And yeah, it's a good car. The P3 is an interesting car because it's become sort of the toy of choice for wealthy gentleman drivers who may not take it to a sanctioned race. They might keep it at their local country club, their Monticello or their Flat Rock or their Concours, or wherever they keep their toys. We know there's probably approximately 50 P3 cars in the US. And we see 8 to 10 of them at the racetrack when we have a sanctioned race. So the other 40 are being used by gentleman drivers who just like to get out and play. because it's a rewarding car to drive. It's a fun car to drive. The Formula Region cars are similar. There's a whole bunch of those that live at country clubs because they're fun to drive. It looks like a little F1 car. They're fast. They're fun to drive. And so that's a big market for us. Those people who may never take the car to the racetrack, or if they do, they take it to, for example, an HSR race or something that's not as high profile as an IMSA event. And so it's that market is very interesting because those are good customers. And the one thing that market, not sanctioned racing, but that market looks for is variations and derivatives. So they don't necessarily want the ACO power pack, which going forward will be the Toyota V6. There's a company that produces an LS3 engine kit for P3 cars, and there's several of those in the US. And I'm told, I haven't been in one, but I'm told that is just a bag of laughs to drive. It's a non-turbo, naturally aspirated V8 with big loads of torque and a big grunty sound. And so those customers are asking for those kind of derivatives of P3 to use on their track days. Maybe that'll find its way into HSR or some other sanctions other than IMSA. But really their track day toys. That's where they'll find their most use. But we love those customers too. They're good people, and they have a lot of fun in these cars. So
very cool. Well, thank you, Mo. I think we're going to get the wind up any minute from Francisco. So I appreciate your time.
Yeah, so thank you, Mo, and I'm really happy when I heard that you were taking the helm of Ligier in the States, because that's with all your connection and all your involvement in the industry, that's going to make a big difference for them. It's a great company, and they could haven't found a better partner.
EPARTRADE is a digital platform that we've created basically to make life easier in the business community of auto racing.
EPARTRADE, there is no e-commerce. It's literally a connection just like at a trade show. So now, any time of the year, a buyer could reach out to a supplier.
When you see a product that you're interested in, all you need to do is click on request more information, and then from there it is forwarded directly to the buyer or to the supplier.
EPARTRADE really eliminates having to travel, closing down your shop. Now you have a place to showcase globally your racing product and technology.
Looking for a quick fix of motorsports news? The Speed Sport Daily is what you need. It's a free racing newsletter delivered directly to your email every day. We'll cover the winners and the losers and tell you who's making news off the track. It's NASCAR, NHRA, World of Outlaw, IndyCar, and so much more. Go to speedsport.com today and get signed up for America's free racing newsletter and get your daily motorsports fix. The Speed Sport Daily.
Land speed record holder George Poteet's Speed Demon rocketed 481 miles per hour at the Bonneville Salt Flats. You don't go that fast without ARP fasteners.
There is no way that we could go the speed that we've gone, the number of times we've gone, with a lesser quality bolt than ARP supplies to us. And we absolutely wouldn't be where we were today if it weren't for ARP.
When failure is not an option, it's ARP-bolts.com.
We're Performance Plus Global Logistics. Our team of dedicated performance industry and logistics experts get valuable cars and components to the track on time in top condition. We provide expedited logistics solutions for the performance industry using direct routes instead of deferred options, and communicate all necessary information to the appropriate resources to meet regulations and ensure a smooth transit and secure delivery, both domestically and internationally. And we exceed customer expectations by providing best-in-class service with an efficient and cost-effective system in place. Contact us today to book your next shipment.
Scott Lewis & Associates, the sales, marketing, and branding specialist for the automotive performance industry since 1988. We get our manufacturers on track by opening an extensive distribution network, providing product training to sales staff, creating fully integrated sales and marketing strategies, building successful industry partnerships, attending trade shows, events, and races, offering first-class support to customers. SLAI delivers solutions that win you sales. To get in touch with an SLAI representative, call 516-378-6100. Go to scottlewisinc.com or email info@scottlewisinc.com.
With roots in the Midwest that date back well before the Model T, Fifth Third Bank has a long history of serving the needs of automotive companies. While much has changed over the years, our passion for helping businesses put cars on the road and on the track has not. Today, we are more committed than ever as a member of SEMA, a founding member of PRI, and a sponsor of multiple race teams across several racing series.
For over a decade, Fifth Third Bank has been a staunch supporter of our industry and a great partner for many companies in the motorsports field.
Our business has been growing extremely fast, and really we could not be where we are today without Fifth Third. They provided amazing strategic advice, the capital we need to support our phases of growth.
They are true partners for me now, and what they do with their involvement in motorsports is untouched in this community.
Where can we take your business? Fifth Third Bank.
You work as hard as your truck, and you have no time for downtime. That's why more truck owners trust Blue Def, America's #1 diesel exhaust fluid brand. Each batch is guaranteed pure, so you can avoid costly repairs caused by inferior DEF. Demand America's best for your truck. Blue Def and Blue Def Platinum. Put trust in your truck.
When it comes to pushing the limits of performance, the pros know there's no room for compromise. At Crowder Cams, we don't just engineer camshafts and valve train components, we redefine what power means. Since 1955, Crowder Cams has been the name trusted by racers, engine builders, and gearheads around the globe. Whether you're building a street machine, a dragster, or a track car, Crowder Cams provides the muscle you need to dominate. And with Crowder, victory is within your reach.
For over 25 years, Wisconsin-based C-Tech Manufacturing has been engineering and manufacturing the toughest, most accessible aluminum tool drawers, cabinets, carts, and tactical storage solutions for America's hardest working professionals. Whatever you need to store and however you need to store it, put your trust in C-Tech Manufacturing. We build it better. Visit our new website at ctechmanufacturing.com or give us a call at 715-355-8842.
If you're watching this video, you might be wondering, What is WPC? WPC is a surface treatment designed to reduce friction and increase the strength of metal parts. As much as it might seem like a coating, WPC is actually a surface treatment. Think of it like shot painting, but the media is much finer, like talc. So what you're left with is a super hard, smooth surface that actually has some proprietary dry lubricants embedded within it. For more information, visit WPCtreatment.com.